Hi, my name is Kelly. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey over the last year and a half of being sick. Starting in March of 2014, I started choking and feeling full after a few bites of food, and I didn't think about it because it wasn't happening on a regular basis. I started feeling nauseous after I would eat, and then finally it started happening on a regular basis, and I finally brought it up to my doctor, as I see him every 3 months due to being diabetic, type 2. He decided to do an upper GI series where you have to drink the stuff that is, I don't know the technical terms, forgive me, but it's like bubbly stuff that makes you want to burp, and you're told that you can't burp no matter how bad you want to. And then you drink this chalky, pasty liquid that, again, makes you want to vomit, but you're told that you can't vomit no matter what because it ruins the test. And then you're on a tilted table, and you have to roll around, and they take a series of x-rays of your esophagus to see how, I guess how your muscles are working. It's an upper GI series, like I said. And then I was referred to a GI doctor that I had seen a couple of years ago that had diagnosed me with celiac disease through a colonoscopy. When I saw the GI doctor, he decided, this was October of 2014 finally, he decided he wanted to do an endoscopy, and after I woke up, he asked me when the last time was that I had eaten, and I said, this was on a Tuesday, and I had said Monday at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and he said the reason he was asking is because when I woke up, my stomach was full of food, and it had looking like I had just eaten literally right before I'd gone in for the procedure. Now, Monday, on my way to Syracuse, New York, for an appointment I had for another situation, on the way there and back, I kept burping, and my aunt said that it had smelled like eggs. It was really nasty. And I felt really bad because it was just really nasty. So then after I got out of the procedure for the endoscopy, my grandmother and I had gone out to eat. Because on metformin, you have to take it about a half hour before you eat food. So I tried eating, and I only ended up eating maybe a quarter to a half of what the meal was at a local, well, it was a food chain. I don't want to say the name. And I wasn't able to finish eating. I was very full, uncomfortable, bloated, nauseous. I was just miserable. Worst I had felt throughout the whole time that this situation had started. So I went home. I was by myself. I'm a single mom at the time. So come 6 p.m., like, I was just so uncomfortable. I can't describe the feeling that I had. I was just very uncomfortable. So I was going through the discharge papers from the hospital that I had the procedure done in, and I found the number to call, and luckily the on-call GI doctor was the doctor that did my procedure, and he was able to pull up my chart, and he was like, he instantly remembered finding all the food in my stomach, and he was like, this is the first I had heard anything about gastroparesis. I have a cousin who has it, so I had been supporting her and doing research for her, to support her. And he said, I don't want to confirm or deny that you have it yet. I'm waiting for biopsies to come back. I said, okay. And he said, strictly liquid diet for 24 hours to get the food to, get out of your system. I said, okay. Come Wednesday, by the way, I also had severe diarrhea, nothing but water. Wednesday, I was really sick, weak, couldn't stand up. I had to tell my son, because he would walk from his dad's house to my house in the morning, and I would take him to school. I had to tell him that morning that he had to walk to school, because he lived literally across the railroad tracks from me at the time, at his dad's house. And then Wednesday, I have him for visitation. Wednesday I was so weak, my face was numb, I could barely stand. I had to call my ex to come over and cook dinner. It was a bad situation. So then I called the GI again on Thursday, and he told me to bring in a stool sample. Ended up being I had C. diff, and he confirmed I had gastroparesis. Then we started a common medication for gastroparesis, which was called Reglan. I was to take it 3 times a day before meals. Problem was, at that point, I was lucky to be eating twice a day. I asked my primary to set me up an appointment to see a dietitian to learn what foods were gastroparesis safe. Sadly, once I got to the appointment with her, she had no clue what exactly I was there for. She looked at my chart and knew I had celiac, diabetes, high cholesterol, but nowhere was it listed that I had gastroparesis. I was kind of annoyed, needless to say. Then she focused during the appointment more on the diabetes and celiac more than anything else. After 3 months of Reglan, I informed my GI doctor it wasn't working. Then it was tried to take the Reglan before bed. Then he had me try amitriptyline for a month. Yet again, that didn't work. All of this was being done over the phone. Not once would he say, come and make an appointment to see him in person. And most of the time I would call the office, say, on a Wednesday. He would either call me at 8 or 9 p.m. well after the office had closed, or it would be 2 or 3 days after I called on the weekend, say on a Sunday night at 7 p.m. I finally got an appointment to see him, and he was convinced that all my issues were related to my celiac. Mind you, during that endoscopy that I did have in October of 2014, he said the celiac was healed. And then he wanted me to try a medication called Zeppan, Zeppan, for a month. I did, and the bloating and the taste of my burps made me want to vomit even more than it did before. I finally called and requested that we do a gastric emptying study, or a GES, to be done, and he agreed. Finally, the day of the GES, it's where you eat radioactive eggs, and right after that they take an x-ray of your stomach, and again every hour for 4 hours to see how long it takes for you to digest the eggs. The eggs do not taste any different. Trust me, I was nervous about it. It's a long process, but I walked the halls of the hospital and took pictures of cool stuff and watched the TV in the lobby. Then when I got the results, I was surprised. My GI doctor called me on a Saturday while I was at my son's baseball game, and he informed me my stomach was emptying too fast. Now, this is impossible and he said that it was impossible for me to have gastroparesis because gastroparesis is where your stomach is paralyzed and it empties your food too slow. He came right out and said he had no clue what I could have or how to treat me. The only thing he could think of was for me to try a prescription strength probiotic called Align, and I could pick it up Monday in the office, and that was the end of our conversation. I had been on the probiotic for 2 weeks with no symptom improvement, sadly. I called my GI doctor, informed him of this, and said he would try to see if my insurance would cover an antibiotic. I tried that antibiotic for about a month, and there was no improvement. Then, about a month or so after that, I started having raw patches on the inside of my upper lip. After speaking to a doctor, he agreed that it was from malnutrition. I started a gummy vitamin, and it worked for a little while. I started feeling weak, almost like my blood sugar had dropped, and I would test it, and it would be within normal limits. My primary checked my thyroid, and again, that was within normal limits. The problems with my lips came back. I decided to go to the walk-in because Blistex and other ointments were no longer working. I was told I had angular cheilitis, Cheilitis. It's a form of malnutrition. So then, when I went through a round of medications with the GI that diagnosed me with gastroparesis and then said I couldn't have gastroparesis because of the GES saying my stomach emptied too fast, I decided to switch to another GI through another hospital in the area. And I seen him, well, hang on, August 5th, I was doubled over in pain. It started off like a normal day. I was going to the grocery store. While I was driving, I started having upper right quadrant pain that radiated to the back. By the time I got home, I was so uncomfortable I couldn't lay down. Heating pad wasn't working. Made some phone calls to try to get to the hospital. Nobody could take me, so I had to call 911 and take an ambulance. Got to the hospital. They ran some tests. Ended up having pancreatitis. Was there for about 3 or 4 days. Levels came back to normal, was discharged. 2 weeks later, during this 2-week time frame, I never really got my appetite back. The nausea never really went away. The pain subsided to where it was tolerable. It was like maybe a 1 or a 2. 2 weeks later, the pain and nausea came back. Then I went to the hospital again, pancreatitis again, and they decided while I was there to take out my gallbladder and biopsy my liver because during both stays, my liver enzymes were doubling daily. Then, that was August 25th that I had my gallbladder removed, and I was discharged August 26th. Saw the new GI that Friday. He didn't do any type of testing other than blood work. And he told me I had irritable bowel syndrome. Then I was frustrated and was crying and called my aunt, and she said, oh, you need to come to the hospital I go to that's out of state, but it's only about 30 minutes away. It's just over the border into Pennsylvania. She swears by this hospital. So we went there. When I started the pain got to the point where I couldn't tolerate it. Mind you, when I followed up with the surgeon who did the surgery on September 11th, I told him the pain and nausea was getting worse than it was before the surgery, and he swore it would subside with time. Then went to the hospital that was 30 minutes away into Pennsylvania. Explained to them what was going on. They admitted me. Then... Oh, wait, I forgot. Yeah, I was told by the hospital that did the surgery, that took my gallbladder out, that I had to have been either drinking, drugging, or eating foods that I shouldn't be eating, and that was the cause of my pain and nausea. I have been in recovery for 12 years from alcohol and 5 years from marijuana. So I told them, you can take my hair, you can take my urine, you can take my blood. It'll prove that I'm not doing any of those things. I had to throw that in there. So when I was in the hospital in Pennsylvania, they did some tests, and it showed that I had some sludge in my bile duct, but they couldn't figure anything else out from there, and they discharged me and told me to follow up with their GI. So I followed up with their GI, and again, he just did a bunch of blood work and said, I think you have irritable bowel syndrome of the stomach. Then I followed up with him again 2 weeks later because he prescribed me a bunch of pills. Didn't know what was wrong with me, just prescribed a bunch of pills. And said, I know this won't help with your pain and nausea, but here, take these pills. I left defeated in tears, basically thinking nobody's going to tell me what's wrong with me. Nobody's going to figure out what's wrong with me. They just see the one test, the endoscopy saying I had gastroparesis, and the other test saying I didn't have gastroparesis, but nobody wants to investigate any further. And I'm sitting here in the middle going, I'm miserable in pain. I can't eat because if I eat or drink anything, it makes it worse. I'm living off a bottle of Boost a day and about half to maybe a full Gatorade a day, and maybe a the pre-made chicken strips that you heat up in the microwave, and tater tots, one or the other a day. I don't eat both a day. I eat maybe one meal a day, and that hurts every day. Since September 8th, I weighed 205. I am now down to 191. And last year, I weighed over 200. I think I was like 230, 240, and now I'm 191, but nobody seems to care because I'm still overweight, and I don't have the actual vomiting aspect of gastroparesis, so I feel like I'm not as important. Then I forgot to tell the GI that I was seeing after I had the gallbladder removed that I was no longer seeing him, and I got an appointment reminder to go see him. So I decided to give him one last chance. I saw him just last week, and he decided to, though he doesn't think anything will be found, to do another endoscopy. So I'm hopeful to have something, whether it be my stomach's full of food again or something. I don't know. I need some type of answer because, like so many other people, even if it is gastroparesis, this is something very common. If they have the gastric emptying study done, they could have 4 of them done, and 2 of them say that they have severe gastroparesis, and 2 of them say they don't have it at all. It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for people with gastroparesis to have several surgeries done that are unnecessary because they're misdiagnosed. So it's very frustrating, and it leaves you feeling very isolated from your friends and family because a lot of people don't believe that there's anything wrong with you, and they think, even doctors will make you feel like you're making it up or it's all in your head. You'll be called a hypochondriac, or that you're looking for something to be wrong with you, when all you want is an answer that makes sense. Not, I think you have this, or something they label you with that only explains 1 or 2 of your symptoms when you have a list of 10. I cannot eat foods that I once ate. For instance, I used to go out to eat once a month with my significant other when we got our money, and now food hurts me and I can no longer do that. Sometimes it's almost like I'm mourning the loss of food. I can't make the dinners, or I do make the dinners and I can no longer eat them with my family. And sometimes the smell of food will make me nauseous. And that hurts. That makes me sad. And I have to cancel a lot of plans if I do make plans, because I never know how I'm going to feel from one moment to the next. And my life is basically consists of appointments, ER visits, taking pills that may or may not help me, laying in bed due to zero energy and not feeling well. My son stopped asking me why I'm laying down or why I'm still in bed. He now lays down in bed with me for a few minutes, and that's now our quality time. I've missed baseball games this past summer due to not feeling well, which tore me up inside. The ones I did go to, I took a lot of pictures. He's my only child, and I want to cherish the memories. He's a junior in high school. He's going to be off to college soon, and I'm going to miss out on stuff. And then you find yourself pushing people away because you don't want them to see you suffering. And it's hard. It's not just yourself that's hurting, it's your family that's hurting. It's just a miserable illness. And to not have a diagnosis is very frustrating. They think it's this, they think it's that. Well, how about you give me something to hold on to so I at least know what's wrong with me and I can deal with it. The not knowing is what's hurting me right now. So this is my first video, and as things come along, I'll post more. Thank you.